John Impact Fee Advisory Committee meeting agenda, St. John Municipal Building main meeting room, on February 24th at 5 p.m.
Yeah, your red button has to be.
Would you like me to repeat it then with that on, or?
Just the St. John Impact Fee Advisory Committee meeting.
Okay, we're calling to order the St. John Impact Fee Advisory Committee meeting, February 24th, 2020 at 5 p.m.
This was done predominantly in 16. Thank you. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ask for roll call. Tom, ask for roll call.
We want to start roll call?
Mr. Blocker,
Here.
Mr. Cummings,
Here.
Mr. Deitzer,
Here.
Mr. DeVito,
Here.
Mr. Fresnoni is absent this evening. Councilman Blazak,
Here.
Mr. Eberly,
Here.
and Town Attorney Adam Decker.
Here.
And we also have with us Jonathan Lawton and Tagi Arshami, I believe will be doing some presentation.
It's your turn.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Let me introduce myself. Tagi Arshami. I'm a principal with the firm of Arch School. And we're a planning consulting firm. Done? Okay, thank you. We are a planning consulting firm in Maryville. And we do, this is one of those things that we do as a part of our daily work. For the town of St. John, we also do what's called park impact fee. And we have done, I believe, 3 of them now. And for the town. Those also go for every 5 years. This is actually a second round of, for those of you that are not familiar with this process, this is the second round or second time we are doing a road impact fee. The last round we started in 2016, and basically it did not, we did not follow up with it. The town decided that it wasn't ready for it. So I am so glad that you are, you have decided to pursue this. And you have, I think in that time, there was significant amount of concerns about the loss of development. And we do know that now, 4 years later, that didn't occur. You have continued to develop. The development actually has expanded the level of development. What I what I thought we can do, and my apologies for not being fully prepared. I wasn't aware of this meeting. But hopefully this would be the first, and then we can set up a full presentation next meeting. But for this short meeting, I thought I provide you with a sort of an overview of the road impact fee and what is, and in this process of submitting our presentation, our proposal to the town for this round, we did talk. I have talked to at least 3 council members, and I'm glad that Mr. Blazak is here. He was one of those individuals that has even come to the office and expressing that what our approach should be, or expressing interest is what our approach, and what it should be, and what are the concerns of the town. So we have provided a brief overview of this process, and I'm hoping that I answer questions today, and feel free to literally ask any questions that you like, and I'll try to answer it. We have a team member, First Group Engineering, that was part of our team members last time. And unfortunately, they are based in Indianapolis, and they couldn't make it for today. But certainly for the next meeting, they will be also here, and they will answer questions. If there is no sort of early questions, I can start the overview of the process. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me start with an overview. What is a what is a road impact fee? Road impact fee is, the concept of the impact fee is basically that the people that come in, new people that come in, new development, they have to pay their fair share of their impact. Any single family home or any type of other development has an impact on services that is provided. In the case of the park, that is, their impact is per dwelling units or per household on the park facilities. In the case of road impact fee, we use the trips that they generate. And that is an impact, that's a transportation impact, that's a road impact. The more vehicles that are generated or developed by a development, the more impact it will be. The concept is that to the extent that is feasible, it would be fair for these new folks to pay their fair share, because the town has already invested significantly in road infrastructure, and the new folks are coming in. They are adding the impact, and it is fair to pay for their fair share. So that's a sort of an overview, and there is a significant amount of calculations in the process that we normally go through, and we will share it with you. We will work with you, actually. And our approach is that we, as we did last time, as we have done with the park impact fee, is to go step by step and go with you through that process and answer any questions. We typically meet at your convenience, either early in the morning or late afternoon, like right now, and then talk about it. For the purpose of this round of impact fee, as sort of outlined by the town council, is assess those transportation facilities that are in the town, and what capacity do they have. We will also, as a part of that assessment, we identify the needs. Which intersection is really bad? Which intersection has this much level of service? And which segment of the road? This is town-wide and region-wide for Indianapolis Boulevard. And so that would be a needs assessment that will be done. It's a transportation needs assessment, and that is, these assessments will lend themselves to when we put future development mix them with future development, and we see the picture of where problems could occur. There is still significant amount of vacant land in town, whether it is residential, whether it is commercial or industrial. Once over a 10-year period, our study is a 10-year horizon. Once that is done, then we'll look at 10 years down the line, how is that going to look like? What sort of traffic we're going to see, and that would determine what the needs are. But also, no community has the total money to address the needs. So what are we going to prioritize? And hopefully, we will talk to you and the town staff to get feedback in terms of priorities of the town. So that's the purpose of this study, as far as the council is concerned. And in support of that is we're going to have several goals, and those goals would be, one would be sort of to broaden the town's long-term policy of use and impact fee for its facility development. The town has had impact fees, so this is nothing new. It's just we are broadening. We have had a parks impact fee. We are broadening to include a road impact fee. So that is one of the goals of this study at the end of this process, that the town council would be willing to consider and broaden that process to use these fees to address some of the needs. Is this a sort of a second part of this right now? Is all residential developments are paying for those impact fees. So it is only focused on residential. We know that the development in town is not just limited to residential. So it is a fair thing to say other uses within the town, they should also pay their fair share, because they are contributing to that impact, to that growth impact. It's not just limited to the residential. Any new residential development right now, they're paying. They're paying somewhere around $1,800 currently. And so it makes sense, it's a question of fairness, that other developments that come to the town to consider paying that, contributing to that level. And there are some gaps that this would remove. The gap that exists, let me give you an example. 100-unit housing development generates 1,000, for the sake of conversation, 1,000 traffic, or 1,000 trips. And a McDonald's, or a couple of McDonald's, or a couple of other residential, non-residential developments could generate the same amount, but they're not paying anything. And so that gap within the overall infrastructure of the town exists. And in that sense, then the road impact fee, that one of the goals of the road impact fee would be to remove that gap that currently exists in the town. Am I clear in the? I know it is afternoon, but I want to make sure that we start. We understand what the goals of this study is. Nonetheless, there is. This is a very brief goals and purpose of this study. I'm pretty sure when we talk to you and as we go through this, you may want to add other goals. And because at the end of the day, you will see that we're going to raise certain amount of funds, and you're going to make recommendation of how you want to allocate those funds and how the council should consider allocating those funds. And so those goals could be also added or expanded in the future. You are the advisory committee. you play by the state statute, you play a role of advisory, and that is specific by statute that people that do know something about real estate and development should be advised and take into consideration. So that is what I will go through with you in perhaps 4 additional meetings and discuss this whole process and get input from you. And you would be, if my experience with other advisory committees and in other communities has been, it's often very helpful. The contributions that we receive is very helpful. And at the end of the line, when we get to that end of the process, your recommendations has values to the town council, and I'm pretty sure they will take it very seriously. We will, in development of the impact fee, there is a specific methodology we have to go through. State statute is very clear. Do these 6 different things and calculate this, do this, do this. So the methodology is very open, very clear, and we will go through that process. You will see it at different times, and each. Typically, what I do is we go in the first meeting. We will go with a introductory type of presentation, what it is, and I plan to do that. We have done it in the past, and that sort of warms you up in terms of understanding what that process is. And then we will go through these different specific activities as far as land use, as far as transportation, as far as future growth, development patterns, and all of that, and run variety of models, transportation models, and come up with the needs. On the other side of this, once we determine the needs, say, well, what that cost is. And then that's a lot of calculations about the needs of the road or infrastructure improvement needs. And at the end of that process, we know that we are going to generate certain level of traffic, and we know what the impact of that traffic would be in terms of actual road or road facilities, and you divide the two together and you get the cost per trip. And that's what we are looking for. And that cost per trip is that whatever it is, it will be charged to the newcomers, or a portion of it. That is something that you will discuss, whether you want to go at 100% rate, whether you want to go at lower level, or there are a variety of methods that we talk to you at the time. When we get there, that last meeting, perhaps we will discuss all of these options, and then you can make your final recommendation. In all of these processes that we go through, we look at what needs to be considered. We look at the growth potentials. We look at existing vacant lands, existing subdivisions, existing developments that still have some areas that are non-developed or vacant still, and all of those will be taken into consideration. And then we project development for the next 10 years. And we will look at the total development created, or total trips created by these types of developments, single family, multifamily, commercial, different types of commercial, and those will be all calculated as a part of our process, and we'll share with you. That is, once we do this, then we get to the fee options, and we will discuss variety of options that we have. You have used even for the parks, but in other communities, they use based on their needs. One of the other things that we are going to hopefully talk to you, and this was an issue on last time, is whether or not there is opportunity that we could create more than one service areas. There are advantages and disadvantages, and I don't want to, at this point, I think I'm going to let that part of it go, how we are going to set up these different subzones. But we are going to look at that. Last time we looked at the town as a whole as one service unit. We do know, and you do know, that what's going on the Indianapolis Boulevard corridor is different than what's going on in some residential neighborhood off of White Oak. And so it is, what it does is, and again, this we have to go through calculations, we have to go through all of the cost estimates. What it does is it each subzones sort of is going to be charged what is due for that subzones. So it becomes a little bit more fair. And before, perhaps, the residential folks were paying for the commercial folks, when the commercial folks are not even paying anything. And but yes.
So if you create these subzones, and let's say you collect money in that subzone, does that money have to be spent in that zone?
That's correct. You're yes.
Rather
That's the sort of the disadvantages of it.
Okay.
That yes, you generate the funds within that zone, then those funds need to address the deficiencies, the growth deficiencies of that subzone. Okay. Sometimes it's called benefit areas, and or service areas, subservice areas. But yes, when we don't know if that is advantageous at this point. We are going to go through that process, do the calculations. In our methodology, we have put enough in our scope to separate the traffics and the trips that are generated in one area versus another area. So that is, I'm hoping that we will do all of this work in 4 meetings with you. What I can tell you is last time we did have more than 4 meetings, but it was great because the members were interested to discuss it, and there was no issue. The issue here is in terms of the timing. The impact fee doesn't go into effect once it is approved by the council for another 6 months. And we anticipate that this study process is going to take 4 to 6 months. And we're going to push it as much as we can, but sometimes, doing the whole town's traffic count is not that easy. And so it does take time. And we have to do it weekday and weeknight and morning, afternoon, and as well as several weeks to get an average traffic count. And but nonetheless, it is our goal is to have this program, if the town council decides to go, and you decide to recommend by January 1. Yes.
So,
Next year.
but this was just done 2 years ago?
4
So
years
we're-
ago. We started 4 years ago. ended in October of 2017, I believe.
So the traffic counts aren't gonna change dramatically, because normally you do this every 10 years, correct?
That's correct.
So you're gonna go back and do the traffic counts all over again?
That's correct.
Okay.
They're just gonna upgrade the data. Which means we're kind of ahead of the curve because we've already got all this data gathered. Excuse me. So basically, they're gonna be upgrading what they have. So that the new developments that have arrived in town in the last few years will have some impact. Like the preserve, being one, because that's originally when this started, back when the preserve was on the drawing
Yeah.
board still.
Yeah, when Steve was here, he told me there has been about 12 to 1,400 new units last 3 years since 2016. That's when we stopped.
340 units a year for the last,
400 units?
340 units per year. New residential permits have been issued per year since, for 17, 18, and 19.
So it's about 1,000 additional units.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, Tagi, the traffic counts are gonna be taken all over again. We're not
Right.
just going to add a factor. Dennis Cobb has explained to us in the past that typically you can add 2% per year to traffic counts and be pretty close. But we're not just adding that factor. We're gonna be recounting all the same roads that were done during the original process. So
Right.
it's still labor intensive to get this data.
Right. And we had, among the consultants, we had several conversations about the value of updating the last one, or all of them updating the last ones. And one of the primary reason we didn't go that route in our scope, we felt that there is a value for doing all new, is the data that you collect is not just going to be used for the impact fee. You can use it for other purposes, for grants and stuff and you have done it in the past using the data that we generated last time. So there is up-to-date data that you can use, perhaps going after other grants. That would be,
We can also use it in our comprehensive plan.
absolutely. You can use it for comprehensive plan. That's part of it will go as a part of your thoroughfare plan. And it's sort of last item I have attached in the part of your handout is there was a couple of sort of press releases at the time, last time, and one was just talking about, the first one was talking about what the town wanted to do. And the second one, which was more interesting, was actually Northwest Indiana Times editorial, issued an editorial supporting the concept and supporting the impact fee. And so I thought that would be a sort of good background information. Yes?
Tagi, I have just a really brief understanding of what you talk about here. I can see where it can be complex. I can see where it requires strict adherence to state, perhaps federal and local laws. And I can also understand piling on and saying, well, there's a lot of things that we need to do. You used the word equitable. Can you give real examples in terms I might understand? The other side, I'm sure there's people in the community that would say any impact fee would discourage purchasing by have the effect of raising property values. Can you say something about the other side of this? The
Yeah.
impact that it would have in the city, the town, and I've been involved in listening to the arguments, and the arguments on both sides are persuasive. But if you can enumerate your point of view on the impact to the whole segment of the population that would look at the impact fee as a negative.
Right. Let me start, I'm just gonna play the role of a reporter. We prepare these documents, and as it is, you as community leaders decide on the policy part of it. So we are going and preparing that. But there are a lot of evidence as far as what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of these of the fees. If you are a developer, if you are in real estate, and you go to a community, you have a subdivision that you need to build and sell and get out of town, you certainly, you're not gonna care about whether these folks having, in the future are gonna have 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line are gonna have traffic issues. And so that is the primary people that don't wanna have the impact fees, and that's, their argument is basically that we are adding to the cost of housing. Now, if you extend it, and I have heard it personally, that, well, we wanna have affordable housing, and this is adding to the cost, and we have done, a lot of times we have, in the communities that we have prepared, the impact fee, and we do an analysis of the cost of construction, how it went up from 5 years ago, because all of these we have to renew it every 5 years, and how the fees change over the 5 years, what the construction costs changed, and what the valuation of these homes have changed. And often the amount of impact fee in your case is about like $1,700–1,800 for residential purposes. When you put that over, it's a one-time cost, so it's not annual, it's a one-time cost. When you look at over a 30-year period for that house, and paying that amount for a $300,000 or a $400,000 home in this community, that is very limited. But at the same time, you can say that you do have 22 very nice parks, because right now that's the example that you can show. And all of those parks have state-of-the-art playground equipments. And we do those types of things. We don't see it. So it is a safety factor for the families that live in this community, that their kids are not gonna go into that playground and fall off and break their back. And that's the value you get. There are a lot of other benefits that you can plan for these things. You have the dollars to allocate to what you need, rather than just haphazardly or rely on other sources of funds, including the town's funds, which is not as reliable as these funds, because as long as you have growth, the funds are going to come. And we estimate, as a part of our work, what that amount would be for the next 5 years. At least you can plan for those. So there are planning benefits of it. Do you answer your question? Sort of?
Wait and see.
Yeah. We have a list of stuff in our presentation. We will discuss it. That's one item. Yes, sir.
So I'm reading here, it says St. John would be the first community in the area with a road impact fee.
Right.
Now, and I know you work for a lot of other municipalities in the area. How do they get by without charging this fee to fix their roads, to have money for that? So I guess I'm just trying to compare and
Right.
see, what, I mean, Cherville's a big town. They don't charge an impact fee, or maybe they do.
They
I
do.
don't- I'm just
They have
question-
parks impact fee. And we do theirs, we completed their last 2 or 3 impact fees. They're not growing as much as you are. Their growth rate is 50, sort of around 50 to 75 homes.
But at one point they were.
At one point, yes, they were. And they have spent significant amount of road and on the road. But your growth rate is much, much higher than they have ever been. I think that is, that's important to note. Other communities, other growing communities do have road impact fee in Indiana. You go to Zionsville, you go to Noblesville, you go to Westfield, you go to Fisher. They all have road impact fee at a much higher rate than what we were discussing last time here. So they are using. Yes, sir.
Yes, how are, currently, without impact fees, how are roads improvements funded? Just through the general taxes?
Well, Doug, we've got, typically we'll do $600,000 or $700,000 worth of road improvement work through our combination of funds. It might be through the TIF funds if the roads are in or serving a TIF district. They'll be with MVH, Motor Vehicle Highway funds that we get through automatic funding through the state. Local road and street monies can be used. CEDAT money, which is economic development, income tax money. There are various pots of money that we can use. Community Crossing Grant, where we were awarded $1 million for, in 2019 for road projects we're gonna be doing in 2020. That's a matching grant. We had 50-50 matching grant. We're not gonna quite wind up getting $1 million because the bids for the project actually came in under the engineers' cost estimates were $2,050,000, something like that. And because of that, we were eligible for $1 million, but when the bids actually came in, they came in at $1.8 million and change. So we're getting 900,000 roughly from that. So there are several, and of course we can do bond issues to improve the roads. So we have several options at our disposal. One, Tom, that some communities use is the wheel tax. That generates money on an annual basis. Town of Dyer, for example, I think they're generating $400,000 to $500,000 a year from having imposed a wheel tax. And again, that's every year. I'm not an expert on that, but I think it's something like a $25 fee per year per registered vehicle that you have. If it's a motorcycle, I think it's half that. But anyway, that's just another way of generating some funds for local road and street projects. And as Tagi said, the 4 communities, at least the 4 that I'm aware of in Indiana that have imposed the road impact fee are the ones the 4 that Tagi mentioned a few minutes ago.
You brought up a couple of items that I should have also bring it up, and that is sometimes you don't have the match money to pay for some of these dollars. Community Crossing is a good example. Community Crossing is actually a good example for use of the last data from our last impact fee, road impact fee that then the town was able to use to go and apply for that. But for matching, this is certainly eligible to use for matching, and that would allow you to access much more funds to build. You're actually there is on the park side you have right now another sort of good example of it, that your park impact fee is matching $250,000 grant for a park, Founders Park, and and that the grant is a federal grant. So that those park impact fees are paying 50% of the project cost, otherwise you would not have got the $250,000.
But there are also federal highway grants that you can go for through NERC, which I know Brian and some of the council members have talked to some of the NERC folks. That's a matching program as well, 80% federal, 20% local, but those only apply to certain road classifications. And in St. John, that would be 5 roads?
No, and it's over a 5-year period.
Yeah, it'll take you 5 years to
5
get
years
that
to get
money.
the money.
Yeah, it's a long process, but 93rd Avenue would be an example of one of the roads that's eligible for that kind of funding. It has to be I believe it has to be a minor arterial road or greater as classified in your thoroughfare plan to even be eligible for those funds. So many of the road projects that we would do with that, like Parrish, I don't think would have been eligible for that. Klein Avenue, maybe, but like 109th is a state highway, so that wouldn't be eligible for us to do. 41, we wouldn't use it on Route 41 because again, state highway. So the limitations of that, those are for big projects. Just, again, because I came from the town of Dyer, the example that I have is in the town of Dyer, we did the Calumet Avenue project, which was eligible for the federal aid monies. That was an 80-20 project. That cost $13+ million to put that in, and 80% of that was paid by the Federal Highway Administration. The rest was by town of Dyer. So it's great when you have a road that is eligible for it, but the vast majority of our roads are not eligible for that pot of funding.
Which therefore falls on the residents under tax, period.
We know in the case of Fisher, they use significantly their impact fee as a match for a lot of road.
Our bonding authority, Tagi, I don't remember the exact number, but I know it's north of $6 million normally, but we've got, we did the $5.6 million bond issue for 96th Avenue improvements and other improvements that were part of the Shops 96 project, but we've got significant bonding authority, but we have some of it that we're already using that are in existing bond
Right.
issues that we're in
Yeah,
the process of
correct.
paying
Yeah.
on.
Yes.
I would like to clarify our mission statement. Are we limited to the impact of the road impact fee, or does our obligation go beyond that? Are you the person to ask?
Well-
We have here Mr. Decker too. The state we are governed by state statute. And road or an infrastructure is one of those items that are allowed by the state statute for the impact fee. And it has to be for the roads. Parks is another example of it. Sewer, water, those are also,
You're expanding on my question.
yes.
When it comes to roads, are we to look at roads? Are we to look at,
We have to look at the build-out, Dennis, how we think the community's gonna build out over the next 10 years.
we as us?
We as us, as you as an advisory board, and with the help of Tagi, and when I should apologize, I said Dennis Cobb earlier, and I just assumed you folks knew who Dennis Cobb is. He's First Group Engineering, and he was the partner with Tagi in the first go-around of the road impact fee that did not make it all the way through the process. So when I say Dennis Cobb, I mean First Group Engineering. So we have to look at what our current deficiencies are, and this road impact fee, as Tagi said earlier, is for growth-oriented improvements. It's not to bring our roads from where they are now up to where they need to be. That is on us, and that was 2 or 3 years ago, that was estimated to be about $11 million worth of work that we need to do to bring our roads up to level of service D or better.
Correct, yeah.
But
Good-
the
good memory,
impact
you
fee is
remember,
for
yes.
beyond that, is, so if White Oak, just as an example, needs to be brought up to a 3-lane road right now to meet current deficiencies, but in the 10-year build-out needs to go to 4 lanes, we can only pay for that 4th lane with the impact fee money. We cannot pay for taking it from 2 lanes to 3 lanes with the impact fee money. We can only pay for the growth-oriented costs of our road system. So that gives us a little bit of an issue there too, because we have to do the first part with our own monies.
And this will all be charted out when he gets into the graphs, like with the
Yeah.
parks, because I was just on the parks and planning, but I assume it's gonna be the same way.
It's a little bit more complicated, but
Yeah.
it is.
But
Well, yeah, on a much
Yeah.
larger scale than, 20 parks.
Right.
So I didn't know what I was getting into until I came here today. I got the phone call yesterday. So, and I'm coming here with an open mind.
That's
I
correct.
I see we're paying 1868 in impact fees on each permit. Am I
Each
correct?
residential permit for the
Each.
park impact fee, that is
Just
only
for the
charged to
parks, yeah.
residential construction. Yes,
So as we get more commercial, like this Boyer project, that tax dollar will be a good income for the town too, right?
it will, but it won't be an impact fee. That doesn't help with the park impact fee because it's commercial. Only residential developments pay the park impact fee.
So this 1868 is just for the parks.
Yes, it goes
And
into
it
a park impact
applies.
fee fund.
And it applies only to residential uses.
Right,
Okay, right.
Right.
So the new park they're doing on Parish over there.
right.
The 3-acre park, which it looks like it's gonna be very nice.
That's Founder's Park that,
Right.
that Tagi mentioned a moment ago. That's what that one is.
So
yeah.
some of the reserve that's been built up from this will go to do that?
Some of the
From the
money that
park
was-
impact fee, yes.
From the
Yeah.
park impact.
We got a matching grant for
Right.
that, and we're matching the grant with, park impact fee monies.
Yes, 100%, I understand.
Right. There's a healthy balance in the park impact fee fund. I mean, many hundreds of thousands of dollars,
Okay.
yeah.
You could eat up money a lot faster with, roads than you can with parks.
Well, I didn't even realize how expensive parks are until we went over that.
You oughta
Right.
take a look at roads.
Did you have?
Right. Just adding to what Rick said, all of this, and as we go through these presentations, you will hear 100 times from me to make sure that you understand and you'll be fully appraised of it. But it is these funds generated. First of all, it will be only generated based on the additional growth-related type of trips, and it will be used for growth-related trips or facilities. It does not address the current needs of the town, and it does not address maintenance needs of any road. Those are town's problems. And the concept here is that the new folks that are coming here should not be penalized for, and be asked to provide for services or level of services that is beyond what is the town currently providing its citizens, or its residents. So that's the sort of the legal rationale for it, that it has to address the growth-related infrastructure needs, and it cannot exceed more than what the town currently providing.
One more question.
Yes.
Again, can the funds, when we're looking at improving a roadway or expanding a roadway and so forth, are the funds limited to pavement portion, curb and gutter, or can it be used storm sewers for the roadway, street lighting,
Anything.
traffic signals?
As long as it expands the capacity and related activities, that's part of it. If you want to expand the road and you need the old sidewalk is gone now, but you have to put it in there, that's eligible cost.
Okay. What about if you, let's do a boulevard with the center median landscaping? Can that be included or not?
That is a good question. We have to see the plan. We have to see whether or not, I think in terms of planning of it, it would be acceptable. Construction of it would be acceptable. I'm not sure if planting trees would be something that we can claim it addresses growth-related deficiency. So these are the things that if we do a grant or if there is additional funding, the town will pay for those portions of the improvements that are not eligible under the state statute. And the impact fee pays only for those elements that are eligible. Another good example would be that, and it's very minor, but it is, we can make the argument that if we need to put a 3-inch layer of asphalt because of excessive trucks due to excessive amount of retail or whatever commercial development that goes in there, and otherwise we would have put just a 2-inch, that the extra inch becomes eligible for impact fee. Yes.
Augie, does a project have to be pre-assigned, or do you collect a pool of money and assign it after you collect it?
The state statute, the way I understand it, requires that these dollars not to be mixed with anything else. These are, the way in Indiana, these are considered to be sort of excise tax. So you cannot put them in the general funds.
But
And it has to
define
be-
the project first?
Well, yes, hopefully, once we go through this process, you set those priorities for the next 5 years. So as the revenues come in, we have already identified projects, or at least those priority projects. And, because a lot of times, grants could come and join, and so, but at least those, let's say 3 intersections have been identified as priority intersections. So whichever gets a grant, maybe that would be the match.
That's why they prioritize, you know, what work, in fact, the work that they offered before. They've already got some things in the plans, and I'm sure that it hasn't changed much as we're going forward. Those ideas are still there, probably.
Right.
Are those ideas surmised in the minutes at all?
I don't believe so, not to my knowledge.
The minutes do have some information in them. If you look at them, it'll talk about the, from what I can recollect from typing a majority of them, it will describe the difference between levels of service A through F, level A being just like grades, A being the best, F being the worst. A service level D is the worst you can get before it absolutely has to be improved right now. It will talk about levels of service. It will talk about the rates for commercial, the rates for residential, but it's an overview and it's tried to be put into a little easier language to understand, because when you're seeing all this on the screen and Tagi's going through it, it can boggle your mind a little bit at first, and so afterwards it does become, it's like, okay, that's what that means. It does actually all come together at the end. It's just breaking apart into small pieces, because otherwise you're not gonna be able to see the results he comes up with at the end until you understand the parts that lead into it, because you're gonna have your different types of housing and the factorizations that come in there. Then you have your commercial and different factorizations. And instead of based on units, it's based on square footage. So there are various elements that come into play.
I think, Dennis, you're trying to ask if there's projects that are specifically named in the future?
I guess if the
Is that
prior
what you were
group, had-
asking?
if the prior group had done some work, and I
Right.
appreciate what you're saying, and you're giving us a homework assignment, but
He was trying to figure out if some of the projects had already been named, like
There-
intersections here, or a Parish and a 231, or a Klein and 231, or a Walden clearing.
There were, and if I get everybody's email address, I could probably send you the old road impact fee information. But I believe it is in some of the minutes where it mentions White Oak Avenue from, say, 93rd to, I believe it was either 101st or 109th. There was discussion of various intersections. It did address Joliet at, I want to say Parish Avenue. It did address lightly at Klein Avenue on various intersections. So I believe some of that is in the minutes, but honestly, I typed those in early 2018, so I can't remember exact.
well, if there is a list of priorities that a prior group has,
Well, first group would probably have, if.
Yeah, well, it is, yeah, yes, it is, it is in the report, and we can, as Margaret said, you can certainly look at it. I do want to warn you, we do know at that time, we had 28 different intersections. And so how that traffic pattern has changed, how these 1,000 new housing has come, how the last 4 years additional traffic's been generated. We're gonna have to redo all of those calculations and determinations. Although there are still probably 1 or 2 or 3 segments of the road or intersections, they are still in horrible condition and should be prioritized. But I don't want to make any judgment at this point. Let us work with you, let us share the new data with you, and then you can see it, why. And again, the minutes probably show more than the final report, because what the final report shows is what are the priority intersections that are proposed. It does not include the presentations that we had that showed all of the 28 intersections, for example, at the time, and what was the conditions. And so it is, you run that risk of making a judgment at this point without having current information.
Mr. Decker, would you be kind enough to, kind of get in touch and find out who or maybe Rick, you can find out who the contact people are in Fishers, and/or maybe you, Tommy, do you know the folks down there?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you know them all personally? We've got to get to the bottom of this variance thing. I think that's the key to the whole
Right.
puzzle, isn't it?
Right. Well, Fisher is the only community, just for the rest of the folks here, we have been talking for the last 4 years. Fisher is the only community that actually has within its ordinance a waiver option, that at the option of the town under certain, now this is a city, under certain economic development conditions, they can waive certain fees, which includes impact fees. At the time, and it's been my opinion throughout 20 years or so, that is not, under current state statute, that is not permitted. We do know that state statute does allow certain waiver or certain reduction of the fees for affordable housing. And that is specifically stated in the statute. But there is nothing in terms of broader sense of economic development that says this is permitted. And for today's meeting, I actually went and looked at that again, and I read those two lines that Fisher does have. And it doesn't come out and says only impact fee, road impact fee. It says road impact fee, I'm not even sure, I can't even remember. I don't believe it comes out specifically says road impact fee, but it says all these fees, including this and this and this, can be waived by, if they meet these other criteria. So that is a good question, and I think we're gonna follow up, yes.
Basically,
And
what
hopefully
happened
work
in the
with.
past is the previous committee suggested a percentage, and the percentage was based on what the impact would be on a commercial building permit. So that, on a comparative basis, when you added 7 to 10% that they recommended originally, it would have generated $374 per house. $374 per house at 350 houses, why bother even putting a fee in? It's not even gonna pay for the engineering. So why even bother pass the fee? But what Fisher was able to do is pass the fee to where a McDonald's would come in and they would wanna build a new building, and their building permit based on this impact fee study would have been what, $250,000. And McDonald's would go, of course not, we don't want anything to do with a building fee of $250,000. And what Fisher was able to accomplish was, we are allowing a variance for these charges, for these reasons, and knock their building fees down to, whatever was reasonable, 60, 80 grand, whatever.
Right.
So therefore, they were able to negotiate with the commercial developers, and they were able to pass variances that were acceptable to the commercial industry, and therefore let the residential, where most of the traffic's coming from here,
Yes.
Do these fees typically go up every year based on inflation or whatever?
That's up to you. There is a way of setting up your initial fee and then go up over the next 5 years, or you can set it at the time of adoption and it stays the same for the next 5 years.
Once we set the fee, it's in place for 5
Right.
years. Therefore, if you wanna add 5% a year, we'll start with a number, and then the next year it's 5% more, and the year after that it's 5% more, 5%. And you keep adding till the 5th year, when you have to reestablish the fee, or it just stops.
Or what if, I'm assuming they're paid at building permit fee then, or are they paid at final plating of subdivision?
Typically, it is collected by the town at the time of building permit.
In other words, when your building permit's issued,
Well, if they want to freeze that fee, let the developer pay the fee at final plating and, at the fee at that time, no?
why would you freeze the fee?
Well, if he pays, let's say it's $2,000 and goes up every year 5%. But a developer comes in and says, well, I have 100 houses, I'll give you, pay for it all for my 100 lot subdivision
I don't know, I'd have to check
Up-
with my attorney.
up front.
So the state statute does provide for an installment payment plan. Normally, it's collected at the time the building, the
Okay.
improvement permit is issued. But there is a section of the code that allows an impact fee ordinance to include an installment payment plan. And it basically would perhaps address some of those concerns that you have, that the entire fee wouldn't be due at the
So
time.
he's prepaying part of the fee, like for a phase one. He prepays that based at that current rate.
Yeah, but see, the building fee and impact fee are based on the value of the home. And how does a builder know what home he's gonna put on those 15 or 30 lots? You don't
Well,
have an idea.
The impact fee is not based on the value of
No,
the home.
impact fees.
The building
It's usually
permit
based on
is,
single
yeah.
family or maybe number of bedrooms, but usually single family
Yeah.
or,
No, but it's, as Adam was saying, I believe there's the option, I believe a developer has the option of paying the fee if they wanted to, Doug, up front for every lot.
okay.
But I don't know why they
Yeah,
take
why
that
would they
on.
wanna do
Well,
that?
it frees the fee, you know.
Well, but you can freeze the fee anyway. I mean, if the town imposes the impact fee, like Tagi said, they can make it a flat fee for the 5-year life of the impact fee, or they can put in maybe a 5% increase in the fee every year for the 5 years. They have a lot of flexibility in how they can do that.
That is, yes, that's absolutely within your sort of realm of work that you can make recommendation to the council. So we want to set this sort of schedule.
Right, and just so you're aware, you as an advisory body make a recommendation to the plan commission. The plan commission then makes the recommendation to the council, and the council makes the final decision. And they can do whatever they want with your recommendation and the plan commission's recommendation. They can go with it, or they can do something different. So but you advise to the plan commission conducts the public hearing, and then makes the recommendation to the council makes the final decision. And that's how far it got the last time, and this body made a recommendation, like Brian said, it came out to, it's $374 per single-family home. That was a recommendation this body made to the plan commission. The plan commission made a recommendation to the council that it do a graduated increase, Brian, I don't remember the percentage, but a percentage increase every
Yeah,
year.
I think 5% a year.
Yeah, I think so, 5 or 7% a year for the 5-year life of it, and then when you renew this and review it again in 5 years, you may come up with another fee, you can do whatever you want at that point in time, but it never got adopted by the council.
It wasn't worth the effort for $374 a house. What kind of roads can you build for 70, 80 grand? Nothing.
But I think the obligation on the part of our professionals, our planners and our engineers, are to give us I'm gonna call it the ideal situation, in terms of improving our roads and what that would cost. So at that time, the fee could have been at 100%, $5,443 per residential permit, and then there's a commercial equivalent residential equivalent development
Unit, yes.
unit, EDU, that could be many times that. I don't remember, like, we used the shops as an example, and it seemed to me that the shops would have paid over $2 million in a road impact fee using that $5,400 ceiling. But as Tagi said, you can recommend anything short of that as well, and then ultimately the council's gonna make the final decision.
And this year, this round, at least based on what we have discussed, is you will have an additional option of having these benefit areas and, which separates different zones.
Right,
So basically, our building permits, technically, if they would've went with the 5,000, could have been up to 20,000 per single-family resident.
right. Could have approached 20,000, Tom, yes. And-
At the time, it was somewhere around 12,000.
And keep in mind that, again, this is a list of projects, road improvement projects that the engineer reviewed for us and made recommendation, and I'll call it a best-case scenario. For example, 93rd Avenue, widening 93rd Avenue to 4 lanes all the way through town.
Right.
And there are many people who say that'll never happen in anybody's lifetime, because you're not gonna take all these homes across the street and wipe them out to widen 93rd just in this area. Plus, you've got 2 railroad tracks you've got to go over and widen it. So there are improvements in there that many people think will never happen. So that's a reason why you might not go to the $5,400 maximum level. But it becomes a matter of deciding, okay, what do you think are realistic projects and what's realistically gonna happen, what can you fund? And then, apply a fee to that. And
I still have a town planning, folder with the 93rd widening all the way through, and that's from 2010, I think.
yeah.
I mean, that would just be
I mean,
the
that was
amount of money to
13,
do
that was
that.
$13+ million, if I
Yeah.
remember right, from the 2018 impact fee, and other projects like that that are very expensive, and are you ever really going to do those?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. We've known for 30 years that 93rd needs to be widened, but it's the same obstacle. What council is going to go knock on these people's doors over here and say, you're gone, we gotta widen the road? And how are you gonna get across the railroad tracks? So there's a lot of obstacles to those things, but again, it's best case scenario, and that's what they're charged with doing. It's not their fault, they're supposed to do that. I think the state statute really forces
Right.
their hand
Yeah.
to give you
And
those
we will
projects.
share that with you, and you will have a list of all the projects. If you care to review them, you will have that, and then decide.
Well,
And
Tagi,
the
I was
same
gonna-
thing would be the council,
I
yeah.
was gonna ask you if you think is there value in providing these gentlemen with the current plan as it is, or do we wanna just start over afresh and not muddy the waters by having them
I'm
look at the-
afraid, yeah, I don't want to muddy the waters.
Okay,
I would rather to go through with
Start
them,
fresh.
you've been there, slowly, every time we meet, we share all the information, you digest it, and in between the meetings, and we typically, meet once a month. And, between those meetings, if you're interested, if you have more questions, you can certainly, call, and we will, address them, either at the next meeting or right there.
I was gonna suggest that we do twice a month until we get all the training out of the way. If you gentlemen are, accepting of that, simply because time becomes of the essence if we wanna try and get this wrapped up by the end of the year. And is morning or evening time better for everybody?
Morning's better for me.
Night times are tough for you.
I'm anytime, so.
Here anytime.
Depends on the day of the week. There's potential for some mornings to be a good option, but that would probably be like a Friday. Otherwise, evening is definitely gonna be a preferred for me.
And you, Dan, or Dennis, you're like me, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So there's
And
three of us,
it doesn't matter to me either.
File, or do you want to just-
No, we don't wanna put you in a box.
No, it's not, you said, what would you prefer? So,
Yeah, because basically, the three of us are retired, and you two gentlemen are still working, so, we kind of just do what we want. We can think about it. And Mr. Decker and Mr. Emberly, they're just smiling faces that sit over there and look happy all the time.
All the time.
Our recommendation, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've been advised by our wonderful assistant over here that we don't have to be sworn in. So therefore, we can go ahead, somebody should make a motion to approve the minutes, and we should go ahead with that. Make the motion, second it, and then vote,
Okay.
so we can approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
The chairman can,
I make the motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
I second that. Can I second that?
it is better with this many folks if someone else would second it.
Okay.
And then you call for the vote. You can vote on
How did I get
it.
elected chairman to this too, by the way? That's what I'd like to know.
You were the seasoned person, although you can actually do that too, but I think Brian was hoping to wait for when everyone was
We're
here.
gonna have a vote, so we're gonna vote on who's gonna be chairman. We wanna just pass the minutes first.
Okay.
I'll second the motion to accept the minutes.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
Great.
Now we're gonna do nominations for president.
No, just this board is only a chairman,
Oh, just a chairman?
just a chairman
Okay, just, we'll have a
for nominations.
nomination for a
And
chairman.
nominations do not require seconds.
Would anybody prefer to do it?
What's your name?
Tom.
I nominate Tom.
Sounds good.
Wonderful.
And all it leaves is all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great.
Congratulations.
Way to go, Tom.
Um,
Too bad the US elections can't go that way.
Now do we,
We just gotta set up, yeah, the one thing I was gonna add is our experience has been, and Tom, you've been involved with it, that the morning meetings are, first of all, I can come at any time you want. If you wanna meet at 7:30, we can meet at 7:30. You're more fresh and we can go through it much faster typically, because it could get a little bit mathematical in the process, so it would be, and in your case, we normally send out in advance, in this case, it'll be probably 30 days, so, because we are not ready yet to present anything. So you will have option of selecting, and everybody else, at least 3 other individuals should be available. So we'll try to work out, I think, with your schedule.
So if we meet twice a month, will you be prepared with enough information?
For,
This dog and pony show before.
Well, I mean, but,
We have
if the
to
guy do
collect the
traffic counts
information,
and
yeah.
everything else, I don't
we
want,
have to generate the information.
right.
At this point, I think next 2 meetings, we should be able to have next 2 meetings. We have enough information
Okay.
that's within our control. But getting traffic data with the weather it is, and that's not within our control. And so when we get the 3rd meeting down the line, I can't for sure say, yeah, we're gonna have a meeting in April, because we may not have had a chance to get the traffic data and analyze it, and so,
But our learning process, doesn't need the statistics. He can use older data to teach us. But at the same time, it'd be better if he uses fresh.
we are gonna go and try to use the latest available data we collected. And in this case, we'll go, Rick, you're gonna have to give me your building data all the way to 2019. So as of January 2020, whatever data that we have, we can collect. That will be our goal. Sometimes we are not successful, we will get whatever other data that's available, latest data. But at this point, we have to still, otherwise, go collect them.
Is there any days of the week that's preferential to you gentlemen? Like Tuesdays, Thursdays, or? No?
I think that gentleman said Friday.
I mean, if it's a morning meeting, it's definitely Friday.
Definitely Friday?
Yeah, if it's a morning, I can probably make a Friday morning meeting. Otherwise, this is fine Mondays. Monday evening is fine, but
Let's shoot for Friday, 10 o'clock. Does that sound like a reasonable time for us to plan? Friday at 10?
this upcoming Friday.
Well, no,
The
but I'm saying
13th?
just as a general thought, Friday at 10. And
That's-
then we can go ahead and fill the dates in, and I can send them out, or have
Perfect.
Margaret send them out to you guys, so that, we can, get moving forward on the training. That's the most important part, is getting everybody here up to speed on knowing what we need to do. Is there anything else we've got, Tagi?
Nope. So
Gentlemen?
look forward
Anybody?
working with you.
So we're looking like the second and fourth
I
Fridays,
was
or-
just thinking along that lines, the second, I wanna look at, see how our other meetings are scheduled out,
Okay,
but since
You'll
we're
let
meeting
us
in the
know.
morning, it makes no difference, it just makes for longer days for some of us, depending on if we've got meetings at night, cause now we got another meeting coming up at 7 o'clock, so we're just hanging around, we were here at 2:30 this afternoon too, so, but other than that, I just wanted to get a feel for what time was comfortable for you guys, what would fit into your schedules best, so that we can have as many people attend as possible. Okay,
Okay,
you can adjourn the meeting.
just,
Public comment.
oh, okay. I call to adjourn the St. John Impact Fee Advisory Committee.
You have to ask for public comments first.
Oh, and does anybody have any public comment? Okay.
Bang, bang the gavel. Meeting's adjourned.